My name is Sarah Reichert, and I am a associate professor in the College of the Environment with the School of Forest Resources, and I'm affiliated with the University of Washington Botanic Gardens. I am a plant conservation biologist, so I work a lot on invasive species, which are introduced plant species which become wild and have impacts on native plant species as well as animal species. And I also work on rare plants as well, particularly trying to understand why species are becoming rare and what we need to do to help them recover and become more secure. Well, so plants respond to climate change individually as well as populations and communities. So on an individual basis, we're still really learning about how they respond. Different species are going to respond in different ways, and even different genetic forms of different species will respond in different ways. Some of the things that we know are that increased carbon dioxide will probably increase plant growth rate. Increased temperature will also do that too. So plants will grow faster. This may increase the fuel load for fires. So in eastern Washington, we may expect to see more fires. Invasive species in particular, we do know respond very positively to the increased carbon change in ways that may make them spread more quickly, as well as being more difficult to control. So invasive species, some of the studies that have been done have shown that increased carbon dioxide increases the reproductive output, so they produce more seeds, and also decreases the juvenile period, so they begin producing seed at a shorter interval between after the germination has occurred. These are traits that we know that are associated with invasive species. High reproductive output at an early age is associated with invasive species. So we may see some of the species that are currently minor invaders becoming more major invaders. We may see species that are already major invaders becoming more major invaders. Another thing that way that individual plants respond to increased carbon dioxide is by having an altered root to shoot ratio. They may put more of their resources into roots. They may also have a thicker cuticle on the leaf, so the skin of the leaf becomes thicker. Both of those things may make them harder to kill. So some of the treatments that we currently have for invasive species may no longer work. We may need to be altering our approaches. Plants also respond as populations and communities, and one of the things that we're really concerned about with the rare plant species in this state in particular, as well as some of the other montane western states, is that the rare species which occur in the mountains may run out of habitat. So as the temperature warms, species can move up the mountains, and we've seen a number of documented cases of that where rare species or even more common montane species move higher in elevation. At some point, they're going to run out of mountaintop, and they can't continue to move higher. Many montane species, including many rare species, have limited dispersal ability. So their ability to make it to another tall mountaintop is going to be extremely limited. And the threat of these montane rare species, or even montane more common species, becoming extinct in a very short period of time is a real concern among conservation biologists, and one that we're looking at very, very carefully. We're discussing the possibility of doing what are called managed relocations or assisted migrations, where we as humans, as part of what's causing these species to become endangered, will actually help them move to a higher elevation on another mountain or to a higher latitude. There's a lot of controversy around this, both scientific and philosophical, and there's a lot of work for scientists to do on the issues of managed relocations of rare species. Well, some of the things that we're a little bit concerned about, especially with the increase in temperature, is things that are invasive in warmer climates, but we don't consider to be invasive here. And invasiveness does have a very strong regionality about it. Species are not universally invasive, and it often is regulated by temperature extremes of minimum or maximum temperatures. As the temperature increases, things that we associate with being more warm temperature invaders may begin to spread here. For instance, it's not very well known, but kudzu, the famous vine that ate the South, as people say, and I'm from the Southeast, so I know it's very rampant there and really has a strong impact on the native plant communities. We actually have had a very small handful of infestations of it here in Washington and Oregon. They've done rather well. Those populations have done rather well. We expect them to be even better as temperature increases. So that the threat of species which we currently consider to be safe, I think we're going to be seeing increasing in the near future. Some of the interesting studies that have been done too, not necessarily on invasives, but they've shown that secondary chemicals of species also change with increasing carbon dioxide in particular. There was a famous study done a few years ago that showed that the compound urushiol, which is the compound that causes humans to itch when they're exposed to poison ivy, that with increased carbon dioxide, the concentrations of those chemicals increase. And so it's also been found for other secondary chemicals too, and a lot of invasive species do have secondary chemicals, some of which are irritable or irritating to humans and can cause dermal scarring, skin scarring, and things from chemical burns. There may be increased incidents, again, where species that are currently considered to be sort of minor in that regard become more major as those secondary chemicals increase in response to increased carbon dioxide. There are lots of things that people can do to help. First of all is to take climate change seriously and to try and really seriously examine our own carbon footprint and what we're doing to contribute to global change. I think people in the Northwest overall are very responsive to that and just need some leadership and guidance in that. I think there's a lot of lack of awareness of some of the things. People know about cars and car emissions, and yet they don't think twice about pulling out a leaf blower with a two-stroke engine. So there's a lot of disconnect, I think, with people needing to be aware of those kinds of issues. Is with the issue of invasive species, again, just being alert and realizing that we are under a period of climate change and that their favorite species, which may not have been a problem in the past, may be a problem in the future. I find a real resistance among gardeners in particular to accept that a beloved species of theirs could be a bad actor. And in fact, that does happen now, and I think we're going to see it happening in the future with increased carbon dioxide and temperature. So being willing to sort of let go of some of those species. As we unwind some of the issues of managed relocation, there may be some opportunities to volunteer with, for instance, the UW Botanic Gardens to try and assist with those. Some of the things that we're doing right now are collecting seeds of montane rare species and even, again, montane common species and storing them here in the Miller Seed Vault, which is a part of the UW Botanic Gardens. We're storing them in part for research and in part for the idea that we may in the future want to do a managed relocation with those species. We're also doing research on those species to understand what the seeds need to induce germination so that we can, if we need to do a managed relocation, be able to do one. Obviously, the idea of intentionally introducing rare species far outside their natural range is something that we're doing with a great deal of thought. So it's not anything that we're going to do in the near future. It's something that we're studying. We're working with other scientists around the country to examine the issues, again, scientific as well as philosophical issues in doing this. But there might be some opportunities to volunteer to help collect seeds of these species so that we have them stored in a bank, in a climate-controlled bank for the future.